Hello, my name's Steve Bales from Zaun. I'm the business development manager for Zaun, and today I want to talk about how we're making physical perimeter fencing a bit security, a bit greener. And I've started on this process. So I've recently become a granddad, and it made me think about my grandchild and what his lifetime will be. And it set me on this journey of where we need to be responsible and how can we influence change by innovation. And looking at Zaun, we've started that process, and I want to share that with you today. But I must start by saying I'm not an expert in this subject. This is about just my encouragement to us all. And these are what I'm going to talk about today is the challenges and the solutions that we offer at Zaun. And I have this saying, it's not just a fence. And when I looked into the sort of sustainability and the renewable energy, it became a process at Zaun for us. And I also want to talk about encouraging you by innovation, like we've been encouraged at Zaun through the innovations that we've taken. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the challenges which drove the solutions for us all. And I think you'll find that yourselves. And we looked at our products and the processes and the innovation that we could do and the investment for the future. So I just want to share that. And I believe that we can all do our bit. So what's the challenge? The challenge is the need for carbon neutral and net zero. And it is matched with the energy securities within that sector. So we go out at Zaun to provide the highest level of physical perimeter security products, and that helps reduce climate change. So the first challenge was the net zero and carbon neutral. Now, the first thing I learned on this journey was the legal requirement. It's a legal requirement by 2050 within the UK. It's quite a tall target. There's also the Climate Change Act, which is 2008 with the target of 2050. So there are two key points for us. Then on this journey, I learned about a little bit more about there's carbon standards for this. So there's the PAS 2060, which is the carbon neutral standard. And then investigating further, there's the ISO 14064, which is an environmental standard. Two different standards, but all gearing down the same process. Now, the carbon standards were there to demonstrate their actions and based on scientific based targets. So it had some real good facts and sustainability to that. And then I learned about avoiding the greenwashing, which was about actually taking action rather than just sort of talking about it or showing it. And that's what we're trying to do at Zaun is avoid that greenwash and demonstrate our practices. And what we are seeing now is we're seeing this as part of the procurement process for projects. So it's becoming part of our process and very important to our customer base as well. So another challenge was about the security energy resilience. So at Zaun, we use physical security for the UK energy network to protect the energy sector, which is important to keep the supply of UK energy going. Then there was the effect of Russia supply globally and the impact of the war in Ukraine, which had effect on our security resilience. And finally, then we had the demands of extra energy that we need at peak periods of time to drain our grid system. So this is very important. The other challenge we learned was about climate migration. So over the decades, people will have to move. And with the temperature rise, will affect people being displaced due to climate migration. And how this affects us, that this will impact on existing and create new communities, which again will then create security issues and security problems that we'll need to resolve with our fencing. And that's the coalition between security fencing and the climate migration. Now, with challenges, there's solutions, and I believe that industry can lead the change and drive the change. And with now what we found at Zaun is that, and I'm sure everybody in manufacturing have found the global energy costs rising means that we've got to be competing with global energy costs. And it's become one of the biggest fixed costs in manufacturing businesses. So we must all remain competitive through innovation and all working towards reducing carbon neutral targets at the same time. So the challenge was, how can we reduce carbon but remain efficient with the cost and the energy? The other challenge was, and a big challenge, is decarbonising transport. Transport across a business can have a major impact on energy related CO2. And the International Transport Forum, they state that transport emits around about 23% of the energy related to carbon dioxide that feeds global warming. So decarbonising transport is vital if we're going to get to net zero targets. They need to be met. So what we did at Zaun, we looked at this, and the first area that we looked at decarbonising transport was we switched to electric forklifts right across the manufacturing and logistics sites. Now, by doing this equated to something like a saving of specific emissions of about 10 grams of CO2 per tonne moved for every forklift truck in the operation at Zaun. The other factor on decarbonising transport is that we set up employee electric vehicle schemes where that they can now use the salary sacrifice schemes with cars to travel to work. We encourage that and support them, and also all our fleet of company cars are now electric vehicles, totally across that. And by that, the research by the European Energy Agency that the carbon emissions of an electric car have been seen around about 17 to 30% lower than driving a petrol or diesel car. So it has an impact. And our full fleet of Euro 6 trucks, we've seen about an 81% reduction in grams per kilometres of CO2 since 1993. So it has an effect. The other thing we did with decarbonising transport at Zaun, we actually installed our own electric vehicle chargers, and this is for staff and for visitors. So if you come to Zaun, you can plug in, charge up your car while you're doing business with us for free, and to encourage that to decarbonising transport. And probably the major thing we did at Zaun, we did a real investment this year into early 2023, and we invested over £250,000 in our factory building to put a 330 kilowatt solar array system on the roof. And this was constructed from about 500 new solar panels. So it really challenged the renewable energy and gave us the energy that we need in peak time to give us around about nearly 67% of renewable energy through the factory. The other thing we looked at was some other initiatives to reduce our energy dependency. So we invested in a new factory heating system to radiant heating to reduce the gas consumption. We also looked at investment in low energy lighting throughout the whole factory. And we also looked at our machinery, shifting from hydraulic to electric punches to reduce energy and improve efficiencies. Then, of course, along came the next subject, looking at the solutions, and that was reducing embodied carbon. Now, embodied carbon represents the millions of tons of carbon emission released during the life cycle of, say, building materials, or including extraction and manufacturing, transport, construction and disposal. So it had an impact on our business. And at Zaun, we're an in-house manufacturing of rigid and woven mesh fencing systems, and we can then demonstrate a reduction in embodied carbon for each of our products. And just to give you an idea of what type of energy we use, and you can see in the manufacture of a security fencing system, we're using a lot of welding with electric welding, and also our welding machine that's specific for making the welded mesh panel, and also plasma cutting and laser tube manufacturing. So we're looking at that all the time, of using the efficiency of our energy to our production. And then moving on to the encouragement to the supply chain process to reduce carbon. And this is where I have a saying in the industry across the board: it's not just a fence. We look at just a fence and say, oh, it's just a fencing system or a fence to protect this. But actually, it's not just a fence, it's a process chain. And when it comes to reducing carbon, we have to look at the whole process of where the wire comes from. So just to run you through quickly, we'll start the raw material as maybe scrap metal, produced from cars, washing machines, etc. That's then transported to the rod mills, where they make the actual heated up and to make the steel wire rope or rods. And then that is then produced into coils and transported to us in the coils in either a galvanized or raw form. Then from there at Zaun, we'll manufacture it into a fencing product and then send it to a coater to be galvanized or powder coating. And then eventually, as a finished product, it gets sent to our supply chain to an installer, who will then put it in and install it to a finished product. So within that chain, we have transport, we have heating, we have all sorts of chemical involvement, and even digging into the ground and out of the ground and using concrete. There's a lot of carbon within that process. We need to encourage our supply chain to reduce that. So this journey at Zaun, we're looking to encourage our supply chain to ask them what they're doing with their carbon reduction to help this process. So by reduction via producing and processing of steel wire into fencing panels at our own factory, and removing multiple transport stages out of that manufacturing process, we're helping to reduce that embodied carbon. And also with the use of the renewable energy in the manufacturing of fencing panels through the solar panels that we invested is also helping in reduce that embodied carbon. The other real factor as well at Zaun is that we recycle our steel in the creation of steel wire and flats, reducing our carbon dioxide emissions by about 58%. Then it moved on to the next solution that I looked at, and got involved with the subject of the whole life and end of life of a product. So creating products requires the view so that we look at the whole life cost of the product and what happens to it at the product at the end of life, how we recycle this. And what we learned by this, and what we promote to our customer, is that by using good quality coatings for protection and a good design system, you can achieve up to 45 years plus of a whole life from a security perimeter fencing solution. Now, what this means is that with the whole life and the end of life, this will promote good carbon reduction over its lifespan. Then within that, at the end of the life, all the aspects of the fencing system can be 100% recycled. So once it's finished its job and we remove it to maybe replace the fence, all the steel posts and all the steel fencing and the fixings, they're all 100% recyclable back into the product or to the scrap metal. So that's good. And Zaun currently, we'll recycle 100% of all our scrap metal too back into the manufacturing sector, and we divert 97% of all our factory waste from going to landfill, which is a good cycle. So really, then, the message is this: is how can we help each other? Well, just working together in industry, and by leading and by encouraging and by innovation. So I would just encourage you, if you want to visit us to see our operation and how we've done it and the process we've done, and talk you through on our challenges and what we've lessons learned, and learn from a small SME manufacturing unit like Zaun that you can invest in greener renewable energy. And also aligning yourself with the supply chain and like-minded networks to help us all raise awareness and educate, so you can do this. And the real thing is, it is coming. The UK carbon neutral targets will drive us down this route. And to finish, really, all I want to say is that we all need to do our bit, and we can. And thank you very much if you have questions.
Well, hi, Steve. Thanks so much for delivering a very inspiring presentation on the sustainable future of perimeter security. And sustainability across the whole industry is a growing topic, and one that is becoming very much top of the agenda for businesses. And Zaun's efforts in this space is pretty admirable from what you described in your presentation, to be honest. And sustainability is a very apt topic, as that's what we're here. That's why we're here today. We're in a virtual event, and we're still connecting with people all around the world. So I just wanted to ask a couple questions to go into, if that's okay with you.
Thanks, Rebecca, and thanks for giving us the opportunity to spread the word.
Definitely. So we have carbon standards and environmental best practices in the majority of our industries, not just security. But security, as well as the fire industry, is an industry where the prevention of risk and life safety obviously comes top of the agenda, because that's what our aim is in the industry. But how can we change people's mindsets and make sustainability part and parcel of what we do?
That's a good question, Rebecca. And I think, like I say, I'm not an expert, but what I would say is that we all need to encourage our supply chains. And if we can talk when we're having our business meetings or meetings with clients talking about risk and security, I think it's a bit like security governance. We need to start introducing, what we're doing in our sustainability as part of our meetings, and trying to encourage that as part of the process, because as was said in the presentation, it's now becoming part of the procurement process. So it becomes part of our business, as our business sort of meetings or processes within our business structure. So it's about encouraging our whole supply chain to think about this and bring it in as part of the process of our whole business, whether it be risk, security, doing an operational requirement within a project. We would do a sustainability or what we're doing about our carbon footprint as such. So it becomes part of that natural process.
Definitely. And I think that ethos will naturally evolve over time anyway, yes. as our customers and our users are becoming a lot more environmentally conscious in their day-to-day lives, which means they're more interested in the visibility of supply chains. And that goes with any product, not just products in the security market, but if you're buying a lettuce in the supermarket, you want to know that the ingredients are, are ethically sourced and grown, and so on and so forth. So I think that will come into effect. And we're seeing it a lot in the access control space as well, particularly with, RFID cards and that side of things. So hopefully we should start seeing that ethos start to change.
It's very hard to you can't tell people how to run their businesses. We can only encourage.
Exactly. And just on that, in terms of the corporate social responsibility, it is evident that Zaun is pretty ahead of the curve when it comes to sustainability, which is great to see. But where would you advise businesses that perhaps are only starting on their sustainable journey?
So I can only give you when I came into Zaun about 3 months ago. And I've been with Zaun before 5 years ago. So I've seen a dramatic change of what they invested in. So that inspired me, along with thinking of my grandson's future, etc., and the hot topic we see on the news. But it inspired me to come out and talk to people about this subject. And what I would say is that look at your business, look at what you can do. But what I think the key advice would be is to start with looking at the standards as well. The standards are there to guide, and I think they'll have good information for you. And also engage with people like Zaun or ourselves and other companies that have done the process or starting the process, because we've learned and we're ahead of the game, if you like you say, a little bit. So we've gone through these challenges as well. So, rather than make the same mistakes, we can help you along the way. So I would say, look at standards, talk to other people in the industry, go out there and embrace it, because it's a subject where we all get a little bit shy about. It's new and it's coming, and it will drive faster and faster. So I would say, like anything that we've done, when first, I remember when ISO 9000 was coming out, it was a hot topic, and this is a similar thing. So it's like anything new: adopt it early, embrace it, look at the standards, and I would say talk to other people and get out there and start the process and just do your bit.
Definitely. I think, yeah, it does echo that kind of every little helps,
Yeah.
that kind of motto. So definitely. And also that the message of learning from each other.
Yes.
You might think that you're in a company that is unique, in terms of its ability to be sustainable because of its resources, its location, region, product, for any reason. But actually, if you talk to other people, you'd be surprised how many different people are going through, different companies are going through the same challenges.
Yeah.
And by opening that dialogue, we can actually kind of fast forward this topic and make sure that everybody is ahead of the curve. And by just contributing that little bit extra in terms of sustainability efforts. I mean, I know that we've tried to, for example, reduce our because obviously we do magazines. So we took a look at our business a few years ago and went, well, actually, we need to go more digital, and pursue that direction. We don't want to be circulating thousands of copies every single month in all different industries that end up getting binned rather than recycled. All of these kind of different efforts, and that's why we've gone down, virtual events and these digital elements. And I think everyone needs to kind of take an introspective looking at themselves and their business and see how they can help and how they can contribute. And just moving on to the product side of sustainability, with the increasing demand for green and sustainable products, how do you envision the future of environmentally friendly perimeter security solutions? Are there any particular innovations out there in this space currently?
I think what will happen within the industry is that you'll see more solar panel maybe used for electronics. So, for example, sort of electronic gates and barriers, etc. The use of solar panel for energy is starting to come into the industry as well. And keeping the focus on recyclability and the whole of end life products is where I would say is the focus to be at the moment. Yes, steel is very much recyclable, but it also has its problems in getting made as an issue, which we'll try and encourage. So I would say that in terms of products, is keeping the focus there. It would be interesting to see what the coaters and the installers in that supply chain. Now, I know some installers are looking at how they can innovate on concrete saving and digging out in that area as an area which is something starting to raise its mind space, rather than having, say, a camera tower within the site. It's incorporated within the fence system, so you've got one fence post, one camera tower, for example. You can save carbon footprint there with the concrete and the digging. So that's one area of innovation some of our customer base is doing with our fencing products. And also, like I say, the use of the electronics with solar energy and how we're making it. I don't think there is other things that product innovation and development. I think products will come along that route as well as we get into the journey more.
Definitely. And I think that, like you said, that collaboration between manufacturers as well to help on that journey, the ability to integrate different products from different manufacturers together so that they work together in tandem, enables end users not to go, there's a new bit of technology out, I want to implement that, and you go, well, you can't because it doesn't integrate with our technology that you already have. And they go, okay, well, let's roll out a whole new system then actually that system that's already in place, that's been there for a few years, that is still perfectly adequate and works well in that environment, is binned or hopefully recycled. But
I think Sorry, Ruby. I think thinking on it as well, the design process is very key. How can we design it out as well? Sort of not necessarily, with excess material or excess ways of things of doing it. Thinking in our design process, I'm a great believer that if the design is right, the project gets put in right. And if we're looking at sustainability, maybe we need to look at how we design things for sustainability as well.
No, definitely. And just a last question, which is slightly off topic, but something that I feel like I really need to know, is you mentioned plasma cutting in the
Yes.
manufacturing process of fencing and products. Can you just clarify what this is?
Okay, so we have several machines. We have a lot of machines, and we invested very heavily in a laser technology machine, which actually it takes a tube, a steel tube, it laser cuts from a program in one hit all the way through, and out comes a fence post. We have a plasma cutting machine, which is a form of cutting, and it cuts any types of steel. So it's a high energy type process. It's just the way the plasma is just a form of how it cuts, but it's like it used to be like an oxyacetylene cutting tool, and then it moved on to plasma. And plasma is not as in plasma energy as such, but it's a high energy type system, and it cuts any types of steel. Yeah, so it's like a cutting machine.
I'd love to see that in action. That sounds great.
I would say, look, if you want to visit Zaun and see our operation of all these
Definitely.
plasma cutters, and it's easier to see it and paint the picture. So you're welcome to contact us, and if anybody wants to come and see our operation and what we're doing, from like, because it's a very interesting manufacturing fact, because we're one of probably only, there's very, very few of us actually making rigid welded mesh in the UK. So we do the whole process from the perimeter security fencing gates of manufacturing from raw wire to the end product. So when you visit Zaun, you'll see the posts being made, laser tubing, the base plates cut out from the plasma, all the way through to the mesh being made on a mesh machine and the wire being straightened. So I refer it to like, yeah, there's that TV program of how it's made. And it's a very interesting process and a very interesting thing to see being made. And that's how we make fencing sexy in the real world.
Well, you definitely tempted me, so I'll be around tomorrow. Have the kettle boiled.
Yeah, no problem. You're always welcome for a cup of tea, Rebecca.
Well, thank you, Steve. This was actually a very powerful session, so really appreciate it. If anybody has any further questions or would like to find out more about Zaun's products or sustainability efforts, please connect with a member of the team at the Zaun exhibitor booth on the platform. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca.